Welcome to the Nausea River podcast. I'm Theo Morgan, and I've said a lot about my long concert-deprived cryo sleep. The world had changed a lot, both for concerts and myself, as I noticed a new world of New England metal that was just under my nose. And here we are, listening to me over your morning coffee or evening ill-advised energy drink. Don't judge me. It's probably obvious that I encounter a lot of my guests as they come by, instead of indulging in long-standing fangirl desires. There are exceptions, I suppose. I'd known about Obsidian Tongue for a few years. Even Summer Gloom came across my radar in 2023. I wanted to see Elizabeth Color Wheel, and of course I told myself that I'd have another chance. Now I never risk saying those words again. I was curious about Tough Luck Fest when it was first announced. As for interview subjects up to that point, that's about it. There are a lot of metalheads of various degrees of annoyingness who get a little too into the metal scene of a land far away. Off the deep end into Norwegian black metal, German thrash, Japanese visual kei, or Finnish death doom from the comfort of a Massachusetts bedroom. And I was guilty of it, though as I became a fresh adult and university student, it was clear that I was simply seeking out what tickled my ears, regardless of origin. I was sad to find that Maudlin of the Well was long since abandoned, but I thought it was a fun bit of trivia that they were from Massachusetts, just like me. But by that point, their mastermind Toby Driver had moved on from both Maudlin of the Well and Massachusetts. Kayo, his current band, still made high-quality music, but the chances of running into Toby on the street were nil. I wasn't an obsessed fan or anything, but if you asked me, of course I'd love to talk to him if he asked. Maybe there'd be a live show or album signing or family emergency that brought him back here. But for a while, I was nothing but another listener in a sea of, according to Spotify stats, 13,000 Maudlin of the Well and Kayo fans. It would be more realistic than seeing ISIS, I guess. My advice to budding podcasters is to take the risks with guests. You need some level of realistic expectations too, but you'd be surprised who in your niche wants to talk, especially with metal. This is a dorky underground genre, and comparatively few metal bands are drowning in media requests. And also, even your all-consuming favorite metal bands probably have a much smaller fan base than you think. So send that message. You don't know who was waiting for it this whole time. As we'll start with an introduction. I'm Theo. Introduce yourself.
I'm Toby Driver. I'm a musician, and I have a band called Kayo.
And a bunch of others.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. Meet Toby Driver. I ain't pulling your leg. And I have to thank him for getting back to me so promptly. Of course, Kayo has a new album set to release on August 1st, and a US tour that isn't really announced, but we know it's coming. I'd be excited even if he left me on red, but I won't prattle on any further. Enjoy the episode. But I guess when I think of you, I think of Kayo first. When okay. I don't think of Maudlin of the Well.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Kayo is kind of the most known one right now.
Yeah, although every time I bring you up, I have to say Maudlin of the Well, and then everyone gets it. By everyone, I mean like a few very plugged in people.
I've been noticing that Maudlin of the Well is, according to streaming stats, the most popular project of mine, even though we haven't done anything in a long time.
In like 20 years.
Yeah.
Those pennies keep rolling in, though.
Yeah, it's very strange.
So first question I ask everyone, I ask for origins, but for you go a long way back. So what are the origins of like you as a professional musician, so to speak?
Yeah, I guess Maudlin of the Well was the first professional project that I had, but I was really young when we released our first album. I was like 19 or so when the first album came out, and I was living in Western Massachusetts at the time. I was in college, and then a label signed us and released the first record. I was still in college at the time. Yeah, so that was like 1999. Mm-hmm. Yeah, are you from Boston?
No, I'm from Central Massachusetts.
Central Mass. Okay, yeah.
So I'm in between where some of the story happens.
Yeah, okay. I thought that's what I
For all
had.
I know, you've driven through my town before. Just verifying stuff on Wikipedia. I found it interesting that you are like a Western Mass college, like specifically Hampshire College, but not being like in the Berkeley ecosystem. And how do you think that influenced you? Because everyone I talked to that went to college for music, like it's always Berkeley.
Mm, how did it influence me to not be at Berkeley?
No, how did it influence you as a musician to like be, in like at Hampshire out in Western Mass?
Oh, well, their curriculum is designed to train you to be really self-directed. And from what I understand about Berkeley, it's the opposite of that.
Okay.
And but I mean, I've never studied at Berkeley, so I don't know. But
No, I was just wondering if you had any perspective on it.
I think it's like I think Berkeley is really regimented, and they have a specific type of training that they give their students,
Hmm.
and specific value system that Berkeley students leave that school with. And Hampshire is really different from that. The value system that they give you is more about being self-directed and kind of having your own ideas and then figuring out how to accomplish those ideas.
Hmm. And
Mhm.
did you study music or did it
Yeah,
just kind of, okay.
yeah, I studied music there.
Okay, I didn't just stumble into it.
No. Mm-hmm.
No, I mean that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I have plenty of listeners who don't know about your stuff. How would you describe KO Dot?
Well, Kayo is, I think, above all an experimental band, but we have our roots in metal
Hmm.
and particularly kind of like gothic European metal, and then just because of the time period that we're from, there's also some roots in this kind of like post-hardcore scene because we formed in Boston at the time too, and like ISIS was kind of happening at the time. So it's kind of like a combination. I mean, I guess the foundation is a combination of European Gothic doom metal and then the kind of post-hardcore thing that's kind of more atmospheric, and then from there, um, there's a lot of experimentation that happens. And so it always kind of goes back to something heavy, but a lot of time it's not heavy. And coming from Modeling of the Well as an origin as well, we have all these like woodwinds and
Hmm.
strings, things like that, and orchestral instruments, and um, yeah, generally it's like really unpredictable. And I think that our fans like the fact that there's always something unexpected happening.
I agree. Although like everyone has like the same two favorite albums, and I'm like the one person who will just give a much stupider answer. Because
uh,
I was reading the AMA you did on Reddit recently with like it was on the Prague subreddit, and like you said like yeah everyone likes Choirs of the Eye,
yeah, that's right.
and
Yeah.
like I do like Choirs of the Eye of course, um but if I had to say what my favorite album was, it's probably Plastic House on Base of Sky, just because there was a period of time where I just wouldn't listen to anything else,
I'm
and
glad to hear that. And
I like the atmospheric goth kind of, and I guess something that kind of like goes away from metal for a bit.
Mhm.
And I really like Coffins on Io because I think goth rock plus jazz is it's just a really funny combo and it works.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I of course I like Cars the Eye a lot. I'm really attached to it, um, but I really really love Plastic House and Base of Sky, and and all the other ones, of course. But I think that one in particular has lots of um, lots of really great composition in it that
Hmm.
um, uh, I would like to not be overlooked in my body of work.
Yeah, I don't think it wastes any of its time either. I
Oh,
think
cool.
generally your albums don't waste any time, but there's something about Plastic House where it's like where it feels like a very well thought out album.
Oh, thanks a lot for saying that. Yeah.
And I guess it is that KO Dot is the closest continuation from Maudlin of the Well, which everyone says it's avant-garde metal, and it is. but I think I came into Modeling of the Well like after a bit of a binge on avant-garde metal where I was listening to a lot of Unexpect and Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum and Diablo Swing Orchestra, and Modeling of the Well seemed a lot more mature and well realized.
Mm.
No disrespect to any of those bands, especially at Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum, because they're still making good music.
Yeah, I think all those bands are good, but I think that their maybe their like artistic um, ethos or vision is
Yeah,
really different from what Model of the Well is.
yeah. They embrace more chaos, and Modeling of the Well could I just revisited Bath. Like I'm throwing it on my commute. Like yesterday, I'm throwing it on during my commute. I'm not going into this having not listened to Toby Driver's music in a week. And I was shocked. Like there are a lot of moments on that album that are very, very quiet, very contemplative. Like lots of where the riffs take a break and it's just a bunch of woodwinds.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that's really attractive about the sound of your music too. I love woodwinds.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course they're great. And yeah, yeah, I think it's great to not cover everything up with drums all the time.
Yeah.
You know, give you a chance to actually hear how those other instruments sound. Drums kind of like, they always do that. They always like hide everything, especially cymbals. Don't you think?
I guess.
Yeah. Um, yeah, great. Well, I think yeah, a really big difference between what Model of the Well was going for and then those other bands you mentioned is that it seems like a lot of that style of music that is called like avant-garde metal or whatever jazz influenced metal. It's kind of
Hmm.
a lot about um, like playing lots of notes and about kind of like being impressive in terms of chops and it's more like progressive metal
Hmm.
in those ways, and it's all about like the performance and blah blah blah. And Model of the Well was always just more about a vision instead of instead of all that other stuff. And I think because I was an educated musician, all of the kind of like progressive sort of sophisticated elements of music came into it um, just circumstantially. But the most important thing was more like the kind of vision and the idea of what the bigger picture of it was.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you've been active for a while as a musician, as we've established, since 1999, basically. Um, what's changed between the late 90s and early 2000s and now? I'm thinking both artistically and business-wise, just for you as a person. It's a lot, I know.
Well, I mean, I guess back in the late '90s, I was still a teenager, and and so I didn't really know anything about about music or the business end. And now I've been doing it for almost 30 years professionally. So now I feel like I have knowledge about
Mhm.
some of those things. Of course, like the landscape is always changing, so the business knowledge that a person has always has to adapt, and it's never going to be what it was, um, 3 or 4 years prior. So you always have to learn, and you're always going to find yourself in a situation where you don't really know what's going on. And then I think musically speaking, I think I maybe more clearly understand how to express the ideas that I want to express, and my taste has changed a bit, and my values in music have changed a bit. And I think it's important for musicians to also always be aware of the fact um, that they have a lot more to learn. And it's as it is with everything, where the more you learn, the more you understand that you know less. The more you learn, the less you know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's kind of
and
like
what about your taste and values have changed?
well, we were talking about bands like Sleepy Time and Unexpect and progressive metal and stuff like that. And I think back in the earlier days, I maybe even if this didn't come out in Model of the Well, and the music that I was listening to, I really loved listening to music that was like really like technical, a lot of notes. Um, and I think that I maybe composed in a way where there was a hierarchy of elements in music where the kind of notes and rhythms were kind of, or even above the rhythms, the notes, the pitches and the harmonies were the most important element. And then everything else was meant to serve that. And that value system has changed whereas I don't really think that there's such a hierarchy anymore. And I think that all of the elements in a composition are equally important. So that means the notes and the rhythms, but it also means the production, and it means the the vibe in it, and all the other things, things that you maybe wouldn't think of as a younger musician.
Okay. Um, what non-musical influences have you taken in?
Do you mean recently or
Just
just
like in general, like any that really stand out to you.
well, I guess since we're talking about Modeling of the Well, one of the really big influences um, was reading about kind of like new age ideas.
Hmm.
And I don't always totally take new age ideas seriously because there's not always like a really strong foundation. But I remember when I started reading books like that about, you know, everything from like the idea of like fairies existing, to astral projection, and then like further into the a little bit more foundational stuff like occult Gnosticism and Aleister Crowley and stuff like that. Understanding all of that stuff, and I guess like kind of marginal religious ideas uh, have have influenced my interests in terms of like how how music relates to those things, and how sound can kind of be a representation um, of ideas that are kind of like outside of the realm of reality. I've never really like written political music, for example,
Hmm.
or like not. There have been some love songs in the past, and it's just stuff like that is like stuff that's really grounded in the material world. And and then there's a lot of music that I have that's not grounded in the material world. And so if you ask about non-musical influences, I would say the short answer is things that are not related to the material world are an influence.
Hmm. And that's stuck throughout your career.
Yeah, yeah. And then as I grow, all of those things are recontextualized by things that I learned. Like, for example, I have some recent music that's like that I call new age music. That's like, it's my band Allure Crucible,
Hmm.
and it's really like related to like nature and meditation and things like that, and especially the nature element in the last album. Um, I guess like this farther along in my life, um, I'm kind of understanding the relationship between nature and the non-material things in this world. Nature is a thing that's very material, but there's also like a spiritual element to it that's non-material, and those kind of things have become influences too further along.
Okay. Uh, so specifically for Kayo Dot, you are going to be releasing a new album really soon, less than a month.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what would you like? How would you sell the listener on it? Gotta do an ad pitch.
um, well, we invented a genre that we're calling liminal metal. Did you read my press release about this?
I like skimmed it.
Yeah, you skimmed it. No,
I
you
s-
should read it. You should read it
Fine.
because it actually means something. Yeah. um,
Okay.
I would say, like, I did put out a bunch of writing about what this idea is, and for the few people that I've talked to about it, they've told me that the writing is kind of like an essential aspect to helping them understand the music a little bit better. So this music is like it's pretty abstract, and for metal listeners, it's going to probably be confusing on first listen. And I think that the things that I wrote about it are um, they help like kind of explain what's going on. And I can just tell you like in a kind of like short form here or in a long form or however long you want to talk about it, is that it's do you know what liminal horror is?
Yes.
Heard of this genre? So it's like, yeah, for any of your listeners that don't know about this, it's this genre of horror film that has existed for a long time. Um, like The Shining, the Kubrick movie is a good example of that. But I think it's only been recently defined as a genre. People have kind of understood this particular this particular feeling and named it as liminal metal, liminal horror, and it's about like kind of like these spaces that are existing between other spaces.
Hmm.
So like in the Shining, for example, the Overlook Hotel is this big empty space that's kind of like between the world of the dead and the world of the living, and it's between times. You know, it's between the present, it's between the past, and that's the type of thing that makes it a liminal space. And liminal horror is it always like takes that feeling of being in a space like that that's in between and kind of ungrounded space, and the feeling of fear that you would get from that. And so in liminal metal, we're basically like making a form of like heavy metal music in some way or another, and the themes of it and the sound is supposed to put you in a similar space to that. It's supposed to exist between times and supposed to exist between spaces, and you're supposed to kind of have this ungrounded fear, I suppose. And so the lyrics of the album are all about these different kinds of like hauntings and presences being imprinted on uh, the space and the time that they're in, but they're imprints, so they are not from that time; they're from another time. And and it's kind of an analogy to how the time that we live in now, in the present time, is haunted by the past, and it's also haunted by the future. And it's haunted by the past. And let's just say, for example, one example is that like fascism is coming back, and like we can't ever come up with like uh, new like social ideas, no new social systems. We're always going to be doomed to repeat systems that have already been established. That's just one example. Or in terms of heavy metal is a genre that is haunted by its legacy. You know, metal has existed since the 70s, I guess, and it's almost 50 years ago. It
Hmm.
is 50 years ago, and so it's like this really really old genre that has that like continues to force its legacy upon metal that's happening now. And if you hear metal bands that that are happening now, all of them like are kind of like required in a way. They're required by the scene um, to be quote unquote metal and to like kind of like to stick with the conservative idea of what metal is. And so that's a way that like metal is haunted by its own past, it's haunted by its legacy. And then the future side of that type of hauntology is something um, like in politics, for example. A really good example of future hauntology is like how like in the Cold War, for example, um, there was like the specter of communism. And so the way that the United States and capitalist countries reacted to the idea that communism was going to take over was through neoliberalism, and kind of this like sort of hyperdrive sort of form of capitalism to really like fight the idea that the idea that communism might take over. So it was haunted by its future and affected our behavior. And that's happening now in music with my music anyway. One example of that is how AI is sort of like haunting the future of AI is haunting music. And and so therefore like now we have to compose in ways that sort of evade this this potential future. And so it's like, it's basically like this ghost of the future where um where you have to like be aware of this ghost of the future that's haunting you, and then you have to like change your behavior uh, to avoid it. And so that's kind of like what the album is all about. It's all of these things in it. And I hope that it's sort of expressed in this way that where the sound of the album is representative of that in some way.
Yeah, I don't the AI question, it's one I don't bring up a ton on the podcast because it's also really scary to me. Even though I'm not a musician, it was scary to me as a writer first because text is both the easiest both the easiest thing to emulate and also kind of the easiest, but also the easiest to spot, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Like in my department at work, we just make a game out of like, okay, is our is our director using AI to type his email or not? And like, yeah, 60% of the time we're right.
Hmm.
Um, but you say like having to act kind of proactively with the specter of AI music, which has already started to hit. Like, what do you like? How have you had to change your behavior besides like just, making extra sure there is a human touch to your music?
Well, fortunately, when you're making experimental music, um, we're really lucky as experimental musicians in this moment because AI can't yet do what we're doing. And me and my friends, we played a game and we went on some of the AI apps and we tried to make the AI make music that sounded like ours, and it was really really bad. It could not do it even slightly. So we're really lucky right now. Like we're making music that's not able to be made by the AI and it's not predictable in that way. But I think that this window is going to close really soon. We might have just a couple years and then pretty soon the AI is going to be able to do it. And
Yeah.
so I think just at least what we can be aware of right now is if AI is going to be learning from what our music sounds like, let me just like think about myself and like it makes me think of my music and it makes me say, okay, what are like the patterns in my own music that the AI would be able to pick out and say, this is what Toby Driver sounds like. Toby Driver always does these tricks. He always does these rhythms. He always does these harmonies, whatever all of the things that I habitually do that are idiosyncratic because, because I've established my identity. But the AI is going to be able to pick these things out and say, this is what Toby Driver sounds like. And now I'm going to create a song that sounds like Toby Driver. And so I want to be able to, excuse me, I want to be able to avoid that. And I want to be able to at least not be lazy enough with my own writing that the AI is going to accurately be able to make fun of me, you know?
Yeah, that's actually back when I did back when I did more writing, that was always something that did spook me because like way before AI, I had friends say like you could never impersonate someone on the internet because I can tell how you type from a mile away.
Hmm. Right.
And and I'm just like, I can't submit my work to AI. It's gonna mock me so hard.
So you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
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 No, I understand completely. It does make me feel bad because like I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to play something simple. Um, like I listen to a lot of low IQ death metal, and yeah, we need that in the world, and it's sad that that's probably a lot more imitatable.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, yeah, as you said, I appreciate that stuff, but I think the reality that we're going to be faced with is that lots of music like that can be created by AI already,
Hmm.
and it's really sad. Like you've heard of this like Mood Machine like book by Liz Pelly. Have you heard about this thing? Everyone's talking about it. It's just basically a book that this writer Liz Pelly wrote about analysis of Spotify playlisting and um, how I didn't read the whole book. It's long, but like the articles that came out are talking about how Spotify algorithmic playlists are basically like largely made up of AI created music now. And so even if you go to like even like a more underground genre like ambient music or something,
Hmm.
it's not even real artists anymore. It's just generated music, and it's the reason they do it is so that they don't have to pay royalties to real artists anymore.
Yeah, I
So
did.
I was listening to like
Hmm.
the Void Gaze playlist on Spotify, like I don't know, last year or something. And it really did hit me. It was like, man, all of this music on here is like this music really could be fake bands, it could be AI because it's like it's a cool sound, but it's like
Hmm.
it's a cool sound, but it's also just like a very, very easily like definable sound.
Yeah, and I
You know?
think there are a lot of there are a lot of genres where even as a human, it's easy to just make it and have it be really bad.
Totally, yeah, and it's been that way for a long, long time too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like a modern problem, you
Yeah,
know?
there's there's never been a time without really bad ambient music.
Right,
I'll
yeah.
just like with it makes me respect the good stuff a lot more.
Mhm.
That's that's what the real takeaway is.
Right.
Yeah, I hadn't read the book, but I had heard I'd heard like microcosms of the issue, like I think it was some like psych rock band where it's just like it's 300,000 listeners, it's all AI.
Oh, yeah, 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 that news just came out, like, last week,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I didn't listen to the music. I did look like there are all these screenshots of the artist bio and picture, and I'm like, I can pick out the yellow AI filter
Mhm.
on that photo.
Yeah.
But one day they'll de-yellow it. I don't know, it like I've noticed that with like bands with I'm just gonna say lazy tour posters.
Mhm.
Like I'll if I see a poster that looks suspiciously orange now, I'd like take a magnifying glass and I'm like, did you cheap out on this poster
You mean with AI?
with AI? Like just generate an image. And
Yeah.
like it was to the point where I think I was like walking around Worcester and I was in front of the I was in front of the theater there and there were like a bunch of flyers for like shows coming up and like I say like there were like eight posters and like five of them were clearly AI and like there hadn't been like a second pass through to be like don't make the clouds jagged.
Well, yeah, I mean, that opens up kind of like other interesting question that I don't really I guess I'm gonna just play devil's advocate here for a second, but like
Hmm.
this is not
That's
actually my opinion, but I wonder with stuff like that, in music, I think that I think that the fact that musicians have been required to be visual is really
hmm
unfair. And music like music is for your ears, it's not for your eyes. Except in this industry and capitalism, we are forced as musicians to have this visual element that we don't really want,
hmm
you know? So then with that in mind, um, with this requirement for musicians to have this visual element that they don't even want to do and they never asked to do anyway, then I guess why wouldn't it be okay to like take the cheap way out, you know?
No, that's actually a good point. Because I will say like if I can think of bands that have like the best visuals, like one is like the experimental death metal band Piron out of New York.
Hmm.
They have like the most gorgeous album covers and the most gorgeous like posters and t-shirts. And it's because their vocalist has a girlfriend who draws really well.
Yeah.
She does all their art. And I'm like, and it's just like, yeah, not everyone love doesn't work that way for everyone.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, 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 of course. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, like I think if you really like ask most musicians in any genre, um, if they would like to be able to exist without having to do any visual element at all,
Hmm.
no photos, no artwork, no videos, I think most people would say, yeah, we would love that. You
Yeah,
know?
I think so.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what you'd do for album art.
I always do my own.
Oh, nice.
I enjoy like I enjoy painting and drawing and stuff. It's just
Oh, cool.
um, yeah, I pretty much always do my own. Sometimes I have other people do one or two, um, but I do it when I can. If I have time to do it, I'll do it. But I also resent the requirement.
That's fair.
Hmm.
Because it's just another thing on your plate. And, if one looks through your discography, it's not like you're taking any breaks from music.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just not like it's not just the album artwork. It's like even like band photos and stuff. It's like nobody wants to do that. That's just for marketing, you know?
It is.
Yeah.
Not everyone can have a pretty face.
Yeah,
But
but even like the very beautiful bands, I mean, it's marketing, you know, like they
Mhm.
make the photo just so that people are like, oh, this band is beautiful, so now we're gonna buy more shit. You know, that's just like it's a bad system. It's a bad system, and it'd be great if like we didn't have to do
No, that's all, those are all really good points. And
that.
maybe things I just don't think of that much.
It's okay. Yeah, I mean, it's for us to think about the musicians,
Yeah.
just for us to think about and complain about.
So, I know you say like, I know you say your tastes have naturally changed in the 30 odd years you've been doing music. Do you still listen to metal? And is there anything interesting you think is happening in metal right now?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I always check out all the new metal as much as I possibly can, and and yeah, I mean, I don't usually find um, new stuff that's exciting to me.
Okay.
But speaking of my value system, whenever something is exciting, it's not always because it's like an innovative idea. Like for example, I saw Mesa recently, and I listened to their album, and I really really liked it. And there's nothing new about that at all, you know.
It's just very good songwriting.
It's
It's one
just
of my
cool.
favorite albums of the year too. So
Yeah, yeah. It's just cool, you know. So like, it doesn't have to be fresh for me to think it's good. It's just I just happen to like that one, and I listened to Ash Inspire recently, and I thought that was very good.
Mhm.
Yeah. But again, it's not super super innovative. They kind of sound like they might be influenced by Kayo a little bit because there's like saxophones and and stuff.
Yeah, but I think if you just like boil it down to saxophones, then I could name a lot of bands I could say sound just like Kayo, but they probably don't know who you are.
Yeah, yeah, maybe, yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I did not invent saxophones. True.
Man, my life's a lie. Um, Speaking of Mesa, they were you and them both performed at Roadburn this year.
Yeah,
How was Roadburn?
it's great. It's a really great experience. I think you could ask any band that plays there, and they'll tell you the same thing. It's a really excellent experience. Great festival, good audience, organized well. Mm, yeah, everything about it is good.
Was that your
And
first time there or
no, I've actually been there 3 times,
okay.
and the first time was KO Dot. That was excellent. The second time I played just solo by myself, and it was just kind of like I was thrown on to the festival at the last minute, and I played an early set, and it was kind of like I mean, it was a good experience, but it was also like kind of like a more casual sort of like I didn't not really even like a real appearance in a way. I mean, it was, but it was like you know what I'm saying. It's like the
Mhm.
circumstances made it be like a little bit less like big of a deal than like the other two times. And then this time was I played two sets and it was two different bands and the audiences were big, like the venue was packed and the response was really good. And for us it was the final show of our tour and it was a really long tour. So by the time we did the festival, the band was just really tight and sounded awesome. So it was good.
Yeah, and I guess how was the tour? Because I know that you did at least did you do stuff under the Allura Crucible name like every night or
Yeah, pretty much every night. And
okay.
it was the two bands. Mhm.
Yeah. How have you toured under Allura Crucible before?
we did a couple very, very brief ones, but this was
Yeah,
the
the big
first
one.
the first like legit one. Yeah.
Yeah. And how was the audience reception to that?
Really good. Yeah,
Okay.
with those two bands playing side by side, I found that the response to Allure Crucible was actually a stronger response, um, which which was very interesting for
Yeah,
me.
cause yeah, cause I get into arguments with people about bands that like go from metal to ambient, or even just like musicians who do,
Mhm.
or like metal to new age, metal to just something that is very far out there.
Yeah.
And like I'm mostly the one advocating for it because it's just because I think it's cool when I think it's cool when someone explores a new sound. And I'm also one of those weirdos who prefers experimental Ulver to black metal Ulver.
Mhm.
So
Well,
it's
I have to say also that like that this sound is not a new sound for me. It's just
true.
new. It's just new in the public. Because if you go
Fair.
back to like my demo tapes from when I was a teenager, there's plenty of music that's kind of like this new age stuff, and then plenty of the metal stuff, and they've always existed side by side. It just so happens that in the pandemic, I decided to finally like release something as like a focused new age sort of slash ambient thing. But yeah, it's not new for me. So like this isn't like a case of like some metal musician being like, oh, now I think I'm gonna dabble with a new sound. It's not that. It's always been that way. And even if you go back to like, my like to Maudlin of the Well, you'll hear that there's like metal moments, and then there's like sort of like new age moments. So
Yeah,
it's always been there.
that's true. And yeah, some of the as I said, I like a lot of the calmer moments in Maudlin of the Well. But maybe if it wasn't Woodwinds, I'd be like, it's kind of mid.
Like the most popular Model of the Well song, according to Spotify, is the first track on Bath, the Blue Ghost.
Okay.
And um, that song is pretty much a new age song.
Yeah. I do sometimes like disregard the most popular track for an artist if it's like clearly just if it's clearly just the first song on the album. Like
Yeah, that could
there,
explain it, but
yeah,
still, it still has the most plays.
yeah. I think it's not as extreme as like uh, it's not as extreme as one of my favorite bands, Mama Leak, where their most popular song is just the like 1 minute intro to their album Out of Time. And
Uh,
then like everything else that album has like 1/10 of the listens because
yeah,
people
and
probably
people just
noped
give
out
it up.
really quickly.
Yeah.
Um, so I noticed that you had a lot of European tour dates this year leading up to Roadburn, and you have a European tour coming up really soon.
Hmm.
Um, this is this is a question that might make me sound stupid. It is based off something and exactly one other band has told me, and it's that like it's simply like you simply get better audiences in Europe. Is that true for you?
No, it's not true about the audiences, but the economics tend to work out better.
Okay.
Yeah, there are several reasons why the economic the economics of touring in Europe work out better, despite the fact that you have to buy flights.
Yeah,
But
I didn't want to say economics because I'm like, I don't want to sound really stupid. And then you're like, I had to pay this much for a visa. Shut the fuck up.
no, yeah, actually you never really have to pay for visas. Like the only place that you have to pay now, going over there, like if you're going from Europe to like Turkey, you still have to like,
Interesting.
but it's like you don't really have to anymore pay for like a visa as an American, but you have to buy a customs document. There's just like
Yeah.
different expenses like that. But the really, really big thing that makes it more economically possible, well, there are three things in Europe, and I'll say this on your podcast because if Americans are listening to you, I think that in our scene, in the music scene in the U.S., we all need to be more proactive about solving these problems. And
Hmm.
and if we are collectively proactive about solving these problems, then we'll see more bands, especially international bands, touring in the U.S. And here are the problems. One is everywhere that you play in Europe, food is provided, no questions asked. Everywhere that you play in Europe, lodging is provided, no questions asked. So these two things are like extremely normal. There's like not any case where like someone would be like, oh my God, I can't believe like you need a place to stay. This is too expensive. Oh, I can't believe you need food. It's too expensive. Not the case in the United States. You know, you book shows and then the people that you're booking shows with act as if like asking for food and lodging is like an extra expense. You know, it shouldn't be an extra expense. It like has to be included. So this already like is a big expense um, that's handled by the European side. And it's not handled by the American side. And then the third one is that many venues, especially in Western Europe and like France and Switzerland and stuff like that, they will have state funding. They have like just they have a good social system for funding the arts, and so the tickets, like the amount you get paid, is not always based on ticket sales. You know, you can get a certain guaranteed fee, and it's not really going to cause a major problem for the promoter because they have a system of funding. And the United States, on the other hand, is so capitalistic that it's all about ticket sales and there's no funding. And as you see with what's happening with the government right now, you know, they're just cutting funding for everything anyway. Like there already was no funding. And now you think it's going to like, there's never,
Mhm.
not even going to be a chance that there's going to be funding like anytime in the next probably 10 years. So it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So it's all just capitalism about ticket sales here. So for an experimental band that like, you know, just is not going to sell that many tickets by nature of what the music is, there's just not enough money to support it, you know? So it's all those things.
I really did not know about the food and lodging situation in Europe because,
Yeah.
I definitely have a lot of musician friends, and I get to hear all the stories about sleeping in the van to save money
Yeah. You
and
never
getting
have to do that in Europe.
getting meals at a gas station.
Yeah.
It's just like, couldn't be me.
You never have to do that in Europe. It's like completely insane that's just normal here.
Yeah, it is insane. Like it's to the point where I was impressed that the Middle East and Cambridge like at least has some deals like, oh, you can get like free or discounted food if you're a musician here. I'm like, wow, that's a big improvement over other venues not letting you bring anything in.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The Middle East does give you a meal. It's true.
Yeah.
Some venues, I mean, if a venue has a kitchen inside, they'll usually give you a band meal. Yeah. But, you know, sometimes the band meal is just like fries.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think the only other story I had in my podcast, about the it was about the Worcester Palladium a court and according to this guy, he's like, I was playing there. I didn't think security would let me bring food in, so I had to like eat this burrito outside of the venue. It's just like that does track for the Palladium. And the only thing they could really give you there is popcorn.
Yeah,
And
like
as
that's not
I've
like those
learned for
kind
very long days there, popcorn is not very filling.
of. Yeah, you got to cover it with melted cheese and then.
Yeah. So, besides the new album, what future plans do you have?
Well, when the new album comes out, we're gonna tour
Hmm.
a bit for it. So, oh yeah, you know, we were just talking about U.S. touring. I'm actually booking a U.S. tour for Kayo now. It'll be our first one in a while. So hopefully that works out, and then we'll go all around the U.S. Um, I'm booking it for January and February, so you can keep your eye out for that. Trying to do a Boston show,
You'll get a
and
hero's welcome from me specifically.
well, thank you very much. Yeah, and then after that, next year, I'm not really sure. It's the 30th anniversary of Model of the Well that year, so maybe we'll take that into account and see if we can make something happen. Maybe.
No,
Other than
Garrett.
that, though, yeah, I don't
It's been a
know.
little too long.
Yeah, other than that, I don't really have a totally solid plan about what I'm working on just yet.
Yeah. Well, for anyone who's new to the world of Toby Driver, plenty to explore. You're not gonna you're not gonna run out of stuff. I still haven't run out of stuff. Mostly on like your solo end and whatever, but
What was
and
that?
mostly on like your solo end, never listen to Tartar Lamb for whatever reason. Like
Oh,
all that stuff.
oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Once again, thanks to Toby Driver for coming on the show. Every Rock, Every Half-Truth Under Reason drops really soon, and already has 2 very long singles out. If you're a Kayo fan, that's just another Wednesday for you. If I spoke to my past self about this, she'd have a lot of questions, like, what's a podcast anyways? Either way, as I told you, dream big and dig deep into that metaphysical well of knowledge. Or, I don't know, catalog some niche music. There's a lot out there that you don't understand, that I don't understand, and that even your idols don't. But I'm Theo Morgan, enjoyed by many but an idol to few. And have a good night. Cool. Thanks for coming on. Any final thoughts?
No, thanks for chatting with me. Yeah, I appreciate the attention.
No, I'm glad you came on. I've been listening to you since I was in college.
All right. Well, it's good to talk to you, man.
Yeah, nice to talk to you too.